Up next, Authentically Detroit welcomes Chase Cantrell, the Executive Director of Building Community Value, to discuss the launch of their first ever online course, Real Estate Development, Building Value in Your Community. But first, this week's hot takes from the Associated Press and Vote Beat Michigan. Detroit strengthens security at sites where ballots are counted, and late results, voting machines, and more, debunking Michigan's election misinformation. Keep it locked. Authentically Detroit starts after these messages.
Have you always dreamed of being on the airwaves? Well, the Detroit Eastside Engaged Podcast Network, or DEEP for short, is here to make that dream a reality. Located inside the Stoudemire, the DEEP Network offers studio space and production staff to help get your podcast idea off the ground. Doesn't take a whole lot of work to get started. Just visit the Authentically Detroit page at ecn-detroit.org or call Sarah at 313-948-0344.
Hey, y'all, it's Orlando. We just want to let you know that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast episode are those of the co-hosts and guests and not their sponsoring institutions. Now, let's start the show.
Hello, Detroit and the world. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from Detroit's East Side at the Stoudemire, inside of Eastside Community Network. I'm Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Givens-Davidson.
Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people in the city of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. We're happy to be recording an episode on this election eve after a short 1-week break. This week, we are happy to welcome one of our esteemed guest co-hosts, habitual guest co-host. His name is Chase Cantrell. Yes, you know him. Chase, as in Cantrell, back on the show. This time around, Chase is here as a guest and not a guest co-host to discuss the launch of Building Community Value's first ever online course. Chase, welcome back to Authentically Detroit.
Thank you for having me back. This is a joy. Y'all have to correct me, but I think this is the first time I've been on with both of you at the same time.
Is it?
It's the first time recently.
Okay.
Yes,
has it happened
because
before?
yes, it has. But usually,
Has it?
Yes, it has. I'm gonna go back and prove it. But I think the thing is that then you became a guest co-host.
Right.
And when you became a guest co-host, then you were filling in for us
Yes.
as opposed to coming and wearing together. But it's great, you know.
Happy to have you. You should be in the guest co-host seat today because my voice is shot, bro. You should be manning it today, man.
Yeah.
Jeez.
You know, and he's also a friend.
Oh,
and
a good
this
friend.
election eve, talking
Yeah.
about politics with our friend Chase is going to be a great conversation because you can't avoid politics.
Not on November 4th,
not
the
on
day
November
before
4th,
general election.
Not in 2024,
Not
right?
in 2024. Donna, how are you? It was a short break last week, but I don't know if it was short enough because last week was action-packed. It's part of the reason I don't have a voice. How are you doing?
I'm good. You know, we had the Eastside Extravaganza on Friday. And I really,
good time.
It was a good time. I mean, that venue is beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Isn't it? It was such a surprise to so many people. They're like, wow, this is so beautiful. It's right on the east side. So, you know, we have to do it there again. And, you know, we made some money this year.
Great.
We had some really good sponsorships and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so it was fun for me. I think the most fun part of it is not even the music, although I love that. I love giving people awards. If I could just give people awards all day,
she
every day.
forgets the script and she'll step aside and start letting people talk. I said, excuse me, not let them have the microphone.
That's why you're the incredible duo, right?
It was actually in the script. It was actually in the script.
For the young person?
I didn't write the script. I saw that and I was like, this is a script that says, let them say a few words. And Orlando checked me and I said, I'm not letting anybody else say any words, okay?
Except for when Gail Perry Mason did Kanye West. I'm going to let you finish, Donna, but Rose Moulton is the best of all time. That's basically what Gail Perry Mason did because she was late.
She had a whole presentation plan. She went to the hospital before she came.
Oh,
and so she was coming in from the hospital. She had a gift. She had taken so much time to speak to all of her children. She had a photo op.
Yeah.
You know, Gail, like I said, you can't tell Gail no.
She got it last year, right? Or the year before?
She got it.
Yeah.
I think she got Eastside Legend.
Yeah.
And, Rose could have gotten that, but it was so beautiful to be able to give her that award, and Stephanie, and those teenagers, that's great.
The teenagers.
And Arlene Garner.
Miss Garner,
it just feels so good. Our partners at Wayne Health got an award. And the East Side legend, Selena Johnson, who is
she was great.
Golf superstar.
I got to talk to her. She's amazing. What a wealth of knowledge. My gosh.
She is. And the thing about Selena is nobody knows her name. And I met her and I thought, why don't we know you? And it's the kind of thing that happens to so many Black women who achieve so much and live their lives under the radar. And so, she comes equipped. When I first met her, she had a folder so I could see, and she could show me who she was.
She was ready.
Because she's had to prove to people, I am somebody, and that is not fair to her. So hopefully more people know about her. The people who do know her love her.
Yeah.
And
to know her is to love her. I fell in love with her in 5 minutes. My goodness.
Yes. And when Eastside Golf, which is that national golf thing, they sell the apparel
clothing line. I love their stuff.
When they came to Detroit, you know who they stayed with?
They stayed with her.
Her.
Yeah.
And she introduces them so golfers across the nation know her. But we don't in Detroit. So that was exciting.
Yeah. And you gave the only Founders Lifetime Achievement Award that will be given out by this organization, because there is only one founder.
Yeah, that was something.
Yeah.
It
was fun watching her be surprised and cry.
I try to do for people what I would want done for me.
Yeah.
There was an organization I used to work for, and I was the founding executive director, and they celebrated a milestone, and I went, and they barely acknowledged I was there, and it really hurt me. Mm-hmm. How can you celebrate a milestone and not celebrate the person who put all the systems together, the person who took something that was an idea and made it into something that you are now carrying on? It doesn't mean it's still my organization. Just acknowledge me for getting it started, right? Mm-hmm. It's not Maggie's organization, but you got to acknowledge Maggie for getting us started and for making a way out of no way. Because when people found things, we got a founder right here with us.
Yeah.
Right?
And one day I'm going to be moving on.
And when he moves on, if I go to an event to celebrate that organization, building community value, and somebody does not give him an award on a milestone, I'm going to have issues with that. Because I remember... Well, you do.
Y'all do not play about these awards. Y'all are serious about the awards.
No, it's not that. It's not even the award. It's the acknowledgement.
Right.
And sometimes that acknowledgement could even just be a hug and saying, thank you for what you did. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be public. But when you treat me like the first wife crashing a wedding when I'm at an event, that tells me something that's not good. And so I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. I didn't give Maggie an award because of that. I did it because I love her, and I love to honor people who have done good things in the community. It just feels good.
Yeah, it does. It does. And it felt good to watch her get choked up. We have this ongoing joke that we enjoy making Maggie cry, because if you've ever worked for her, she's made you cry one way or another. Chase, how you doing?
I am great.
Yeah.
I'm just enjoying this moment, being with both of you. This is a great day.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, it's time for Hot Takes, where we run down some of the week's top headlines in the city of Detroit. For Hot Takes, Detroit strengthens security at sites where ballots are counted. This is by Corey Williams at the Associated Press. We also ran it in Outlier Media. Visit us at outliermedia.org. 4 years ago, supporters of then President Donald Trump gathered outside Detroit's downtown convention center as election workers counted absentee ballots inside. Workers were heckled as the group held signs that said "Stop the Steal" and "Stop the Cheat." Some beat on windows inside in an attempt to disrupt vote counting. Extensive plans are in place to make sure it doesn't happen again. Detroit City Clerk Janice Winfrey and Elections Director Daniel Baxter told reporters Thursday in the hall where ballots will be counted Tuesday that security preceding the election and throughout Tuesday night has been stepped up since 2020 when Trump supporters lobbed false accusations of voter fraud at the city. The quote says, "Nobody expected that. Nobody in the country, nobody at the Department of Elections expected or anticipated that," Baxter said. "We knew that it was going to be a challenge. We had 170 174,000 absentee ballots counted. We were in the midst of COVID. The world was upside down. We had a turbulent America going on at the same time, but we didn't anticipate the type of shenanigans, I could hear his voice saying this, that occurred during that time. I was going to try to do my best Daniel Baxter impression, but I don't want to get in trouble. Earlier this year, law enforcement agencies, civil defense officials, and election administrators began meeting in Pennsylvania to coordinate how they will identify and fight election threats this cycle. There was heavy police presence Thursday inside Huntington Place in Detroit as Winfrey and Baxter discussed voter turnout, which is anticipated to be between 51 and 55%, slightly above the 2020 turnout. They also discussed absentee ballots, early voting, and other aspects of the current election. Winfrey told reporters that her office has been working the local police agencies, Michigan's Attorney General's office, and the Justice Department on what she calls a comprehensive security plan throughout this week and the days moving forward. This plan will continue through election night to ensure the safety of our election workers and the integrity of the election process, Winfrey said. Donna, what say you?
Oh, my goodness. I have so many things. I think what nobody anticipated was the absence of police support and protection in 2020. The absence of James Craig, the same police chief who was, locking people up for peacefully marching, saying they have a right to speak and treating violence as speech. I think that's what we didn't anticipate. I was reading something and I shared it with you.
That part. Because I think people forget, and I don't mean to interrupt you.
No,
because
interrupt.
I think that, we went through it at Bridge Detroit because I was there covering it, and we called it a white mob. And one of the questions that we habitually asked that didn't really get mainstream attention is the loud silence and absence of the Detroit police chief, James Craig, at the time. He allowed that to happen when it was happening. Police were there. I don't want you all to think that police were not there. Police were there. Police allowed this to happen. Yeah. And that is unconscionable. I'm still, I posted something this morning, and this really does upset me. I feel the stress of what tomorrow could bring in my chest. I feel the anxiety, in my body, not just for those of us who are journalists who have to cover this and find the words to explain whatever it is that happens tomorrow night and the days following, but even for our election and poll workers, people who have been volunteering with the city of Detroit for years, elders that I grew up knowing and seeing them at the polls when I went with my parents to watch them vote, who were intimidated, who were afraid, who said, this is it for me. All of that happened on that night. And I don't think people really understand the gravity of what happened at TCF in 2020.
They didn't, because we also didn't have elected leadership that played it up and really spoke about it strongly. I'm friends with, I love, and I don't know him at all, but I'm excited by the Philly DA who basically said, F around and find out. You can come down, F around and find out. That's my guy right there. I want to say, I think everybody should say that. But the reality is that, I am disappointed by the passivity of the Justice Department, because we should have known between January 6th and now that some of these same people are operating and planning some things. Have we infiltrated any of their ranks? Have we broken up and exposed any conspiracies? People are burning up boxes. And it's as if when it's these white patriot groups that they call themselves patriot groups, you have to react to them. You can't be proactive and say, let's stop them before these things happen. Why should people be able to come F around and find out? Why aren't we destroying them right now? There's this fear right now of militias and the rabbit right, where I just feel as though we don't know what's going to happen, and it scares me too. It scares me because people can do crazy stuff. It may not be people banging on windows this time. They really do want to win. They really do think they can win. And I don't believe they're going to win. I think that Trump is in for historic loss. And because of that, and I think he knows that, I listened to this one rally, he was saying, if I don't win, I'm in trouble. And he's scared. Some of his behavior is reflective of that, because every campaign has internal polls. You say whatever you want to say in public, but you know what your internal polls are telling you. And you know people aren't showing up at your arenas. And you know people are leaving early. And you know there's not the Trump lawn signs everywhere that you used to see them. That speaks to the fact that people are ready to move on, I think. And I think, when you're in an abusive relationship, an abusive marriage, the most dangerous time in an abusive marriage is when you leave.
Chase, what are your politics on this?
I mean, the fear that both of you are describing, to me, so I've been watching a lot of international news. So looking at how Canada views the election, how French media view the election, how the UK views the election, the way that they talk about it almost as though America's in decline. And to me, this amount of fear of violence shows that we are, I hate the term, like we're on the cusp of something, but like we are beginning to see systematically how the nation doesn't function correctly, right? How our systems are not functioning correctly. The idea that Janice Winfrey even said that she had to buy a handgun last time because there were people who approached her home, right? The fear of a city clerk.
Jocelyn Benz's home, her home, all
exactly.
Of that. We covered all of that.
Right, like the nature of the violence has escalated.
But why aren't we doing a better job tracking down who's committing this violence, who's planning this violence, surveillance? We have surveillance for every kind of thing. But I think, again, that
we have surveillance on black bodies. We know how to surveil black people very well. We know how to surveil black men very well. I don't think the system knows how to punish, surveil.
I think they know how to surveil. I think some of the surveillance happens, and in the same way the police didn't react to TCF, I think that some of the reaction from our security forces doesn't happen.
I think that this is my issue, and this is my issue with Biden. He's passive when he shouldn't be. I think that Biden is, living, he's a white man living a genteel life, and he still wants to believe he can work both sides of the aisle and stuff like that. That's why he needs to go, because he's problematic in his leadership where he doesn't take threats seriously. There's no way we should have gotten to 2024 and just now bring charges against Trump. That makes no sense to me. I know you want to be careful. I know you want to be prepared, but some of that is hesitance to lead. Some of that is hesitance to do the kinds of things that are necessary to protect people. There's all different types of things. Criticism I could have of the Justice Department, because I don't feel as though it took the threat seriously. And I think it's going to take a whole nother leadership class to come in and do a good job. But I do think that Kamala Harris is up to the job. One thing she's a prosecutor, and she's not afraid. I can practically read her lines. She said them so often, but she's not afraid of transnational gangs and whatever. I think we need more leadership there. So I'm concerned that there has not been enough done. I know that Dana Nessel has been looking at some charges in the state, but I feel like we've been harder on students protesting on U of M's campus in some ways than we have on people who are threatening election violence in the state.
And Dana Nessel's another conversation, because, if we want to talk about disappointment, we could have that conversation. Let's move on. Late results, voting machines, and more, debunking Michigan's election misinformation. This is by Haley Harding at VoteBeat Michigan. This election day, people around the country will be looking closely at the tight contest in Michigan to see who's showing up to vote, how the vote counting proceeds, and what the results will show. That includes bad actors who will be seeking to profit in some way, maybe politically, by spreading inaccurate information as if it's fact. Here's what you need to know about Michigan's elections to make sure you don't get caught up in the lies. Number one, how do we know Michigan voters aren't casting multiple ballots? Well, there are lots of checks in place to ensure that each voter casts only one ballot. Michigan uses something called Qualified Voter File, which notes which voters have requested absentee ballots, who returned them, who voted early, and so on. It's the record of who's allowed to vote, who has voted, and who hasn't. When someone who has already voted, either early in person or with an absentee ballot, checks in at their polling place to try to vote again, the QVF will inform poll workers that the person has already cast their ballot and cannot get a new one. Number two, can poll challengers cause chaos at counting centers again? Well, poll challengers in Michigan have a lot of power. They're separate from poll workers or watchers. They can challenge a voter's eligibility or how officials are doing their jobs. They gained notoriety in 2020 when some challengers denied entry at Detroit's vote were denied entry at Detroit's vote counting center because there were already enough of them inside to reach the limit. And people gathered outside began to demand that the count be stopped. Shout out to Summer Woods, who held it down. They are an important part of ensuring the transparency of Michigan's elections, though. Any registered Michigan voter can be a challenger, but they must be credentialed by a specific approved organization. Clerks try to split challengers evenly between parties when possible. Number 3, can homeless people vote in Michigan? Yes. And it's why you might see a lot of those people whose voting records show them registered to a park, a street corner, or a church. Is there a problem with Dominion voting machines in Michigan? Only some of the machines have an issue, and it's a problem with ease of use, not their security. The glitch is occurring nationwide with Dominion's voter assist terminals, which are the accessible machines designed to help voters who have disabilities. These are not tabulators. They are touch screen ballot marking devices that allow blind voters or others to use various assistive technologies to cast their ballots. Why does it take so long for Michigan results to come in? Well, it's entirely normal to not know the results of the election immediately after polls close. Clerks say accurately counting thousands of ballots, millions across the state, takes time. And in a very tight race, it's hard to project a winner based on statistical patterns. The state has done a lot in recent years to try to speed up the process, but it's not perfect. Clerks have the option to process absentee ballots, take them out of the envelope, verify the signatures, and put them into the tabulator, but not count them before Election Day, which many clerks, particularly in large cities, have opted to do. We'll likely have results from those ballots soon after polls close on Tuesday, but ballots that arrive on Election Day can take a while longer. Does Michigan have more voters than people eligible to vote? No. The claim has been debunked extensively by the state as well as independent experts. Michigan has 7.2 million active voters and 7.9 million residents over the age of 18. We have a high registration rate in part because anyone who gets a driver's license is automatically registered to vote. Donna, what say you?
I mean, this election fraud is an intentional act to try to sway and create doubt in the minds of voters. It's part of the electioneering strategy of MAGA. I'm not even going to say the GOP is the MAGA electioneering strategy to cast doubt in votes. But really, I think what's at heart is not something that you can educate people out of. I think what's at heart is this belief that only certain people should vote, that only certain votes should count. When people were talking about voter fraud in 2020, they weren't saying there was voter fraud in Grosse Pointe. They weren't saying there was voter fraud in Lansing. They were saying there was voter fraud in the blackest city in the state of Michigan, and that's Detroit. When they talked about it in Pennsylvania, they weren't talking about State College, Pennsylvania. They were talking about Philadelphia. In Georgia, Atlanta. And in Arizona, they were talking about Maricopa County, is that correct?
I know they were talking about Baltimore and Maryland. In
Arizona, they were trying. That's where they have inflicted more election violence than just about anywhere. Where they've had people actually, tracked from their homes. But when you look at it, what they're looking at is population centers with large majorities of non-black voters that helped influence the statewide totals. Without Detroit, Trump would have won in 2020. Without Philadelphia, Trump would have won in 2020. Without Atlanta, he would have won. And without the county in Arizona and in Baltimore, this is where he wins. So the reality is this is the contest. They pretend like it's everywhere, but it's not everywhere. It's not everyone. It's us. And they say we don't want immigrants voting. And that sounds good, but immigrants can't vote. What they do also want to do is they want to disqualify as many people of color who have recently become citizens or who might look like citizens. They're trying to reduce the power of the black and brown vote.
Chase, what's going on in your life? Are you seeing this conversation come up in your family, in your circle of friends? Are you having to demystify and correct a lot of misinformation in the circles you run around in?
So not in the circles that I'm in. I've seen it on the proactive side. So I'm part of the ACLU lawyer network. And there's so much work going into understanding what's happening, right? Having strategies in place ready for any of the election interference scenarios, having lawyers in place, to put forward litigation that needs to happen against, any election boards that don't want to certify election results in the way that they should. So what I'm seeing is that there are plans in place to fight this on the ground as it's happening. So that gives me some comfort, but I haven't had to demystify in my group.
That's good. And I don't want folks to forget to vote down the ballot. I mean, we have school board election in Detroit.
Judges.
We have judges. I'm telling y'all about these judges. Shout out to Outlier, who's been doing an amazing job on our judges guide. We got, senators and congresspeople. Like
proposals. There's 2 proposals.
Do you know how long it took me to vote? It never takes me
Took
this
you a
long to
while.
vote. Because I was not going to give anybody my vote, right? And so luckily I was the first day of early voting at Wayne County Community College. Should have gotten absentee so I'd have all the time in the world. And I'm like researching everybody. And then Kevin's standing next to me and we're comparing ballots. Then I voted for too many school board members.
And you spoiled it?
And I had to spoil my ballot and get another ballot because I voted for, I was doing too much, but I was not prepared. And I encourage everybody, if you haven't voted, do your research. Look at your sample ballot at home and do your research because there is
Ballotpedia.com.
Mm-hmm. And we can put that on our
in our
Facebook,
description.
in our description so that people have access to that. But no, I mean, I think that the voter misinformation that in my circles is not that. I think that's a MAGA kind of thing. That's a lie they're trying to spread. And I think most of us in our community don't believe that. I mean, we're not necessarily
I've been talking to some young people, like early 20-something young people, young black men, especially it's reverberating in some of our communities that plan to take their souls to the polls on Tuesday. I've had to have a ton of corrective conversation. I'm always around young people. I don't know why that happens this way, but
You're a magnet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
think that there's been intentional misinformation that they get off of social media.
Yeah.
And I think they're being targeted. I do want to say a couple things that I think are really important. Number one, we need to stand firm as a community and not let all of these pundits divide black men and women the way that they're doing. Mm-hmm. It makes for good TV shows, it makes for good whatever, but it's really damaging.
And it's not real
fair.
thing.
It's not fair, but what they're able to do is to create these narratives, and it infuriates me. You know, this one rapper said this, therefore this is how young black people are thinking, and they've had this one, Trump has this one thing, I just saw this, where it's black men in a barbershop. First of all, 2 of the men getting their haircuts were wearing hats while they were getting their haircut. Someone said, they've never been in a black barbershop because it's just not going to happen.
That's not how it goes.
It was just a ridiculous propaganda. And I think the divisiveness doesn't end at election time. Now you start seeing, insults thrown both ways. And the reality is that black men and women are more likely to support Democratic candidates and have historically done so at higher numbers than everybody else. And rather than focusing on the weaknesses and the vulnerability of black men and their feelings of not being respected and treated well, which is real, right? But rather than focusing on that and pretending they're going for Trump, why don't we focus on why so many white men and white women are going for Trump? Why don't we focus on what's wrong with them? Because it's always pathologizing black men when they describe it. And now I believe similar things are happening, and for different reasons, with the Muslim community. There are Muslim people who are conservative, who agree, have fundamentalist beliefs, and have been against some of the more progressive aspects of the Democratic Party for years. They don't want to have, Hamtramck would not let them fly a pride flag, remember? You've had people come out about LGBT teachings, and so many of those people support Trump. Doesn't make sense to me, and it doesn't have to. But the majority of Muslim people who are voting and aren't supporting Harris are supporting Jill Stein.
Right.
So having people get out there and say, this is why they prefer Trump to Harris, it's a narrative, and it feeds an agenda, right? Because it's like, look, see, I told you so. You lost these people to Trump, and Trump's going to be in power because of that. I think that we have to be a little bit more discerning and not be so vulnerable to meeting. Shout out to D.L. Hughley, who had a BET special, Black Men in elections where he actually put a panel together and they talked about and debunked and really spent some time in the communities trying to narrate what they're hearing from Black men. And indeed, it is not what you're saying. You may have to educate some voters, young voters, people who don't vote that often, because there's always going to be vulnerable people who are subject to that. But the majority of Black people who are standing in line right now do not want to see somebody who hates them in office.
When we come back, we're going to be talking to Chase Cantrell about building community value. Keep it locked.
Founded in 2021, the Stoudemire is a membership-based community recreation and wellness center centrally located on the east side of Detroit. Membership in the Stoudemire is available on a sliding scale for up to $20 per year or 20 hours of volunteer time. The Stoudemire offers art, dance, and fitness classes, community meetings and events, resource fairs, pop-up events, the neighborhood tech hub, and more. Members who are residents of the east side have access to exclusive services in the Wellness Network. Join today and live well, play well, be well. Visit ecndetroit.org.
Welcome back to Authentically Detroit, everybody. We have a very special guest here with us, Chase, as in Cantrell, Building Community Value, a Detroit-based nonprofit organization dedicated to equipping residents with tools to shape their neighborhoods, announces the launch of its first ever online course, Real Estate Development, Building Value in Your Community. Hosted on Coursera, the course aims to teach aspiring real estate developers the fundamentals of real estate development, including development stages, team building, project feasibility, social impact, and financial modeling. This innovative online course, developed in close collaboration with the University of Michigan Center for Academic Innovation, marks a significant shift for BCV, traditionally focused on in-person training for residents of Detroit, Hamtramck, and Highland Park. The online course is now accessible to learners worldwide, fostering real estate and community development skills on a scale far beyond Southeast Michigan. The self-paced, asynchronous course takes approximately 16 hours to complete and offers a comprehensive curriculum. Learners will engage with video lectures, some featuring augmented reality, readings, discussion prompts, quizzes, and a financial analysis tool used in real estate projects, which is also known as a pro forma template. Chase, you have been busy, Professor.
I have been.
Yeah.
And there's an alum in the room.
Right? I am an alum. I back when it was, ancient, and we had to
2017 or 18.
come out in the snow in person on Saturday mornings to take our real estate development class. This is really cool. I want to ask you too about. So I'm seeing it scale, right? Mm-hmm. There's also there used to be a selection criteria for folks who were able to take the course. Right, folks had to apply. Mm-hmm. Folks who were selected to take the course, then paid to take the course, and had to buy the text and all of that. What's the setup now? Because didn't this make money for BCV? Is it still gonna make money for BCV? How does this work?
So we still have an in-person training. So let's start there.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
We still have an in-person training. The online training is now a prerequisite to the in-person. So folks have to take the online training first before they come into the in-person.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good to know.
So the reason for that shift is there are so many people who want the information, right? Who may not actually be interested in doing real estate development themselves. They might be a community activist. They could be a government staffer. We have folks from the city of Detroit and various parts of government who have taken the course. Like there are folks who need the information for their professions, but who may not themselves be doing development. They can take the online course. They don't need the in-person. Then there are people who are actively doing real estate development projects. They've purchased something from the land bank, don't know next steps. They've purchased some vacant land. They need to know next steps. Community development organizations that want to do more projects in their neighborhoods. Like those are the folks we really, really want to focus on the in-person class.
Yeah. Talk about what was missing in the ether that you decided to do this. I mean, why not put this and to make it so broad? Like what happened?
Yeah. So to back up a little bit, I mean, I didn't know you were going to read all that. So it sounds really technical, right? Like all the things that we teach. But the idea is that there's land and there's structures in Black communities throughout the United States. I love Detroit. I'm probably going to be here for all my life. But I look at places like Baltimore, New Orleans, Memphis, Cincinnati, all of these other cities where there are people who have the same aspirations as Detroiters do, who want to understand how to get land and structures in their neighborhood, how to do this kind of development work. Every time I travel to these communities, it feels like I'm hearing the same narratives that I hear in Detroit. And it's like, all right, there's not a BCV in these other places, right? So how do I create a foundation for people who don't live in Detroit? The in-person is always, you have to be Detroit resident, Hamtramck resident, or Highland Park resident. So outside of that, there's not going to be a BCV Chicago, BCV Baltimore, et cetera. So,
you don't want to scale?
No, we're not scaling that way. We might train the trainer, right? We might train other organizations to do the work that we do. But this was our method of getting this word out and getting this education out.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. I think that, online learning is here to stay.
Mm-hmm.
I teach online, and I think that that's just another, way for people to get information. And, this idea that, but I think also because you don't have to pay tuition.
Right.
It's also one of those things that we're trying to popularize, and that is getting information without having to pay for people who cannot afford it yet.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that a little. So to audit the course, it's free.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody can take the course. The only thing is if you want the certificate from the University of Michigan, it's $49. But if you don't need the certificate, it's a free course.
$49 is essentially free. Right? You can't get that kind of education for $49. And so it democratizes knowledge, right? It helps people who might think I'm interested in real estate find out if they're interested in real estate because they get enough information. So I think it's actually a brilliant concept, and I'm excited. I'm actually going to take the course.
Is it a new curriculum? I mean, talk about that process.
So we had to step back. So all the way back. So when we first started the course, we used a book you can buy on Amazon. It's called Investing in Real Estate.
I still have mine.
By Gary Eldridge. It's a really good book.
It's really good.
But it's technical, and if you've never done real estate before, it's not necessarily the easiest book to start with. We took a step back in 2019. We created a course pack for the course. So we sort of threw out the Investing in Real Estate book. We created a course pack for Detroiters. So it's 100 pages. Monique Becker, our manager
Shout out to Monique.
Yep, program implementation, she took the lead on that. So we've been using that. Like it goes in a sequence that we thought would best reflect how Detroiters need to learn these concepts. So when we created this course, it took a year to develop this with the University of Michigan. So it took a while. We looked at our course pack. We looked at the questions that learners typically pose in our in-person training, and we said, all right, we have to write scripts for each of these videos. So we really had to think through what people need to understand, the sequence in which they need to learn it. We had to, without having an audience, without having the classroom there, we had to think through the kinds of questions people pose. So this was a lot of reflection and a lot of thought that went into creating this.
I love it. I love it. Chase, talk a little bit about, the alumni base of building community value. I mean, it's a base that you are really proud of.
I'm so proud.
Okay. Yeah.
So
what are some champs, man?
I always say this. When we created BCV, I never thought about the network that would be created, right? I'm just like, yeah, we're going to have these cohorts. People are going to learn. People are going to do development in their neighborhood. But we're on the 15th cohort. We've had about almost 450 people who have gone through the course. So now when I go to different places and when I hear about developments that are happening, Eddie Carrington here on the east side, East Warren is doing a $7 million project. The Ribbon. Right. Damon Dickerson is also doing something on East Warren, the Deco.
Love him.
I can begin to see how people started with single family rehab or duplexes, and now they're up to major rehab or, ground up construction. So the alumni base has really grown over time. But what I also love is that we come together quarterly so that people who have taken this through different cohorts can meet each other. And people partner. There are contractors in our program. There are mortgage lenders in our program. There are realtors in our program. So people begin to use each other's services. There's media in our program as well. And I say that
was
because
community development back then.
But I say that. But there have been other journalists who have taken the course too, and I can reach out to them, right, and say, hey, you might want to look at this development project that's happening, or feature this person. So it's a really good network.
We're gonna take another quick break. We'll take a quick break and let's talk about transformation and let's talk about money when we return. We'll be right back with Chase Cantrell.
Have you always dreamed of being on the airwaves? Well, the Detroit Eastside Engaged Podcast Network, or DEEP for short, is here to make that dream a reality. Located inside the Stoudemire, the DEEP Network offers studio space and production staff to help get your podcast idea off the ground. Doesn't take a whole lot of work to get started. Just visit the Authentically Detroit page at ecn-detroit.org or call Sarah at 313-948-0344.
All right, we are back with Chase Cantrell. Donna, you were getting ready to make a transformative point.
It is. I mean, I think that sometimes, I was in my class, I talk about different types of power, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the types of power we don't always talk about is transformational power. And that is when you change the condition of something, right? You change the condition where no longer are only a small network of people able to own and create things in their community. Now there's at least 400 people who have the skill sets, and maybe 1/3 of them who are actively engaged in some aspect of the work. That is transformation. It transforms blocks. Like I'm talking to people at the Detroit Line, at Enterprise Community Partners, and they're talking about all of these houses that are being purchased by individuals, not by organizations, or by rich people. And I have to think some of those are Chase students, right?
Some of them are.
And the other thing, though, I had a question for you, and that is about the pilot, accelerated pilot program. Can you talk about that and whether or not you supported it?
So I did support it with some hopeful modifications over time, but I did support it. This goes back to another organization. So there's an organization out there called READ. It's the Real Estate Association of Developers. It started in 2018 as a networking group for Black developers in the city of Detroit. So once a month, Black developers would get together and just network and fellowship. In 2020, Arthur Jemison, so shout out to Arthur, got together a group of developers. Maybe there were 30 to 40 Black developers in the city. And he was very clear. He basically said that if you want to have more influence in the city of Detroit, you all need to come together as a group, figure out a plan of advocacy for yourselves, and begin to talk to city government and advocate vis-a-vis city government in a different way. So we went behind the scenes, figured out that READ would be the institution through which we do that, and now we have over 125 members of READ. These are folks. We have over $1 billion in assets managed. Again, it's over $1 billion in assets managed collectively by Black developers in the city of Detroit. Like that, when we actually added it all up, we were all shocked. We knew that it was going to be a significant number, but that was a little surprising even to me. So it was READ as an organization that saw a pilot. It was passed as legislation at the state of Michigan level. Municipalities had to adopt it. So the city of Detroit. It took 2 years. It took the city of Detroit 2 years to adopt it. Yep. And it was really READ pushing, saying, we need to have this for affordable housing in the city. We actually created the different numbers behind, if you want to get really technical, the different AMI bands, the area median income bands. So if you're doing really deeply affordable housing, 30% AMI, you get the biggest it's not quite an abatement, but you get the biggest benefit as a developer, and it goes all the way up to 120% AMI. But we put together some numbers and we presented it to the city. The city had to react to our numbers, right? So there was research that happened, there was negotiation that happened, and then on the day of the vote, again, this is something that even surprised even me. There was a call to action. So shout out to Jason Jones, one of the co-founders of READ. There was a call to action for our membership to show up to city council in person. And there were about 20, I think it was give or take 20 developers in person and 20 on virtually who spoke before city council. And I've never seen developers, specifically Black developers, show up to advocate on behalf of something. So you had PCV alum, you had community development organizations all saying we need more affordable housing in the city of Detroit. Pilot is the way to do this, and it was unanimously.
I wrote a letter of support. I was out of town at the time, but the week before, because it was introduced the week before, and then they delayed it, and I was glad they did, so that this Coalition for Tax Justice, which is not the Coalition for Property Tax Justice.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I was confused.
It's a separate entity. Bernadette Atuahene understands the law and policy backwards and forwards. Let's just say this group does not. This group has a lot of emotions they act on. And they were circulating a letter that mischaracterized the whole thing. And one of our elders in the community sent me something the day before that vote was supposed to happen. And she said, this is, what the pilot is and whatever. And have you heard about this? Are you up on this? And so I sent her, an explanation for what it was, gave her some supporting, explained how this is going to help, provide deeper subsidy and stuff like that. But it occurred to me then that the next step is for Reed and for BCV to work with organizations like ours to educate the community.
I agree.
So that they can be prepared to support this, because there's so much anger in our community that it's easy to manipulate that, or it's easy to misunderstand facts. And I think this is a case of not understanding facts. Pilot seems like one of the best things to happen, even with the need to improve it.
Right.
One of the best things to happen in our community in a while. So,
because the thing I wanted to see, so it's 4 units or more. So you're not dealing with single family homes or duplexes, which is the majority of the housing stock in the city of Detroit. So when I think about, community development orgs that are doing work in neighborhoods, when I think about BCV alum that are doing work, like a lot of this is 1 to 2 units. So it doesn't go down far enough for me. So those are the things that I want to see modified over time, or at least studied by the administration. It was not studied by the administration. I had that confirmation. So I do want to see it modified over time.
Can we talk about the gap in capital?
Yes.
That doesn't get to Black developers, large and small. What are you seeing within the alumni base? How easy or hard is it for these folks who now have the acumen to get the capital they need to get these projects to the finish line?
It is very difficult. So when you approach most banks or credit unions, they look at, again, these small scale projects. So, single family duplexes as investment projects, right? So they don't think of this in the same way as someone's primary residence, and they don't lend for real estate investment projects. If you're trying to get money from a bank for a real estate project, you need to be at 25 million, 50 million, like really big projects. So traditional banks, Bank of America, JP Morgan, name them all, they don't usually lend in this space. So a lot of our learners and our alum are using hard money lenders, right? Which charge exorbitant interest rates, 10, 12, 15%.
Goodness gracious.
It's really bad, right? Jeez. Which exacerbates the problem. It makes some of these projects just infeasible. You just can't do it at those rates. We have local community development financial institutions. They're supposed to step into the gap when banks don't lend. There are a few that do lend in this space, but also the application process, just all of the kind of data that you have to provide to get through their underwriting process. It's a huge barrier that many of our folks in neighborhoods just can't meet. So most people are using either their own cash or they're going to hard money lenders. So it's still a huge, huge problem. We could be doing a lot more if there was cheaper capital available.
Are you in that space of advocacy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
What does that look like? What's the policy look like?
The policy looks like those lenders saying the same thing over and over and over again, that, they just don't lend in that space. The banks will say it's because of federal regulation. Like they just can't do it. CDFIs will say that they're trying, but they themselves don't have enough capital to deploy in the space. It sounds like a lot of excuses to me. So, we talk to every bank that'll listen. We are working with folks like Black Leaders Detroit, trying to get more community-focused products for our neighborhoods, but, still, those are limited resources.
One of the things I recently learned about was the market value analysis map. Mm-hmm. That helps undergird a lot of the decisions of the city. Their
decisions to
neighborhoods,
put resources?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll just share with you, they identify which markets are distressed, which markets are, let me see. I want to make sure I have this correct. They have regional choice markets, okay? These are the highest property values in the city, an eclectic mix of residential, commercial, institutional uses, older housing typically in excellent condition. Mm-hmm. The government activity is to support and expand their business improvement districts, encourage the conversion of certain commercial properties to mixed uses, market regionally and nationally, and build on specific amenities for universities, tourism, and arts. But then they have the reclamation market. characterized by substantial population loss, low property values, elevated vacancy rates. And the government activity is to, one of them is large-scale site acquisition and parcel marketing, invest in people, land bank parcels, pursue investment partnerships with neighborhood anchors, preservation investments on the strongest markets and blocks, and strategic site acquisition and assembly. The reclamation markets are characterized by orange.
This sounds familiar.
It's not a red lining. They've orange lined our city. And the organization that did it is called the Reinvestment Fund, which is a CDFI. They've done it in 40 cities. And so the city, banks, and others are using this data to decide where we're going to put our money. Is this a good place for our money? And this is in addition to appraisal values. So when we were in D.C. and I had an opportunity to talk to the folks at HUD, I said, what resources are you providing and what guarantees are you providing to help facilitate investment in these areas that are orange lined and are deemed too, risky? And so some of the women there were giving us some tools that we could use, but this one man in particular was defending it and explaining that the government has to, just like any other lending institution, has to consider risk assessment when they are deciding where to put money.
Risk always means racism.
It always means racism. Racism and risk.
Can we just say it again for the people in the back? Because my goodness.
It's one of those things that is so upsetting to me. So while I'm saying this, there's a woman in the room who used to work for the city. And she's one of our supporters. And she's, oh, yeah, when I was in the city, I used to see that thing. And they use that to make decisions. That helped guide the Detroit Future Cities framework, the Strategic Neighborhood Fund. People use this, and they see it as valuable. And risk is now race neutral, but risk is never race neutral. What happens is the metrics are a proxy for race. So you never have to say black anymore. You just know that this is what we're doing. I'm concerned about that because I think it plays a role in how the city sees itself investing in various areas of the city. There's only one, the regional choice market is clearly downtown, right? And, wherever the Illiches want to expand. And then the other markets are somehow reclamation markets, or there's more than one type, but there's, those are the extremes. Distressed markets. And I just wonder how you get around that, or if Reed is aware of that and is using this information at all to advocate.
So I have never seen that map. Although when I've talked to city government, certain CDFIs who manage funds, it's clear that the metrics that you just stated are the metrics that they use. So that doesn't surprise me that exists in map form. In terms of Reed, Pilot is a good example, right? There have not been tools for neighborhood scale development. Most of the state tools that we have really benefit downtowns. So this is really one of the first examples of policy advocacy for Reed. But thinking through things like SNF, where there's strategic investment in neighborhoods, there's only 10 neighborhoods in SNF, right? So part of my role at BCV in particular is people come into the course understanding that no one's coming to save us. That's generally the things that learners continue to say, right? Like, no one's coming to my neighborhood, no one's investing in my neighborhood. I see all these things happening in the strategic neighborhoods or downtown. What can I do where I live? The conversations that I have with folks like the Land Bank, like HRD, et cetera, are about those neighborhoods, right? How do we ensure that folks who are doing this work, in spite of all of the challenges, right? We're demolishing more than we should. We're not preserving enough. I keep saying that the city made a grave error in the amount of demolition that it's done over time, right? We are losing family housing.
We were the ones over here saying it the whole time.
Have been.
We've been saying this for years. Go ahead.
And y'all have been right.
Well, there's the economic interest. Who benefits? Whenever you have something happening, you always have to follow the money because there's money in it somehow. And we know that demolition contractors make money. But then I learned about this landfill economy, that the production of landfill is itself really lucrative for some of these same businesses. They take the, contents of the home that they demolished, take it somewhere, grind it down, and then sell it as landfill to somebody else. And a lot of times this waste is not tested for toxins or anything. And because you need so much landfill to fill up a single hole, it's really, really lucrative. So we get it on the front end and the back end. And I think if somebody were to say the Citizens Research Council of Michigan were to investigate all of the money that has been, earned by certain private sector contractors, then I think we'd be able to understand better why the push for this is there. Because I don't think it's what is explained to us. I don't think it's about improving neighborhoods. When we purchased 4 homes from the DLBA, right? Mm-hmm. And 3 of them were pulled out of the demolition pipeline. So I'm talking to somebody from the city, or from the DLBA, and they tell me, well, we've gotten pressure from the city to find homes to demolish. And so we look in neighborhoods where there aren't a lot of strengths. And so I had to say, are you familiar with the Chandler Park Conservancy and what's going on in Chandler Park? Do you know that tens of millions of dollars are going into this community to get them to say, oh, let me take another look and I'll get back to you? And we were able to pull it out. So I actually believe that these maps are used to determine where to demolish.
Oh, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
And where to preserve homes. Mm-hmm. And so knowledge is power. I think we've got to take this knowledge that we have around these maps, and we should not allow them, because, 20 years from now, 50 years from now, people are going to be talking about these market value assessment maps and how they contributed to racism. Racism is never something we see when it's happening. It's always something in retrospective, and then,
But I think that you, in particular, are proof that there are people who do see it in real time, right? And who begin to raise their voices as it's happening. I'm sure there were people who were being redlined who were saying, 70 years ago, wait a minute, this is racist.
Yeah, what I mean is that it does not influence public policy in ways. I don't know anybody whose parents were my parents' age who didn't know what redlining was. Okay, I heard about redlining as a child, never understood what they meant.
You post the offense, we can intellectualize it, we can study it.
Right.
I'm interested to hear from you,
But I just want to go back to what Orlando was saying, just real quickly. You said that we made a mistake in demolishing too many houses,
yes.
right? And Orlando said we've been saying that all along. And that's what happens, is that people who are living at ground zero have been saying and seeing all of this, and the people who make decisions, I'm not saying you, because I know you were empathizing with us all along, but the people who make decisions at City Hall, on City Council, in the mayor's office, don't always see the impact of their actions, and they're not always listening to us.
And I don't think they care sometimes, right? Because if you think about how long they will be in office, 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, by the time they are out of office, the impact and the effects of what they've done, they've moved on, right? They've gone to another, they've moved up the chain of positions. They might be running for a higher position after that.
Or they pad their resume and go to another city.
Exactly.
I
have an image of somebody when you say that.
I think the era of Duggonomics is coming to an end, and we will be, a city that will be in the throes of a municipal election next year, where we would quite possibly be electing a mayor that is not Mike Duggan. Does Reed, endorse candidates? Are y'all involved in the policy space in that way?
So Reed, like ECN, like
it's a nonprofit.
It's a 501c3.
Oh, okay.
We cannot endorse candidates,
okay,
but we can, encourage people to vote. We can educate people about policy. We can do all the things that a 501c3 can do.
So how is Reed preparing for, and BCB preparing for municipal elections next year? It's going to be consequential for every community development organization, every neighborhood group, everybody.
So in similar ways to what neighborhood groups are doing, we're going to make sure that our membership, our population, are educated about the things that the different candidates are saying, how it impacts real estate in the city of Detroit, how it impacts development, how it impacts Black developers in particular, and the neighborhoods in which we do our work.
And I think that residents in the neighborhoods that you do your work really need to hear from you. Mm-hmm. And I think partnering with community development organizations so that you can educate them about what you're doing, why it's important, your policy objectives would really help build power, because when you have the people who are developing and the people who are living there all on the same page, it puts pressure on. And it's the fact that people are so disconnected from your work that they can go and say, pilot is a bad thing. And I'm not blaming you. I'm saying that we've got to be bridge builders in the community development space so that we can bring all of our people together and make it happen. So that's something I look forward to doing next year.
The one thing I would note, so you asked me about the alumni network. One thing that makes me proud is that, again, not everyone does development, but I've seen alum of our program at community meetings, at city council, who are beginning to use language in a different way, right? They understand and can push back on things that they wouldn't have been able to in the same way, before having taken the course. So it's like, it's not just, we don't want this in our neighborhood, right? It's, what's your NOI? Like, what's your net operating income? Like, what's your return? Like, they're asking like real questions about the economics of the deal. And we all know that a lot of times when, especially these really big downtown projects, they don't make sense. So when you begin to peel back layers, it's like, all right, now more people can understand why these deals are unsupportable and where our subsidies are going.
We can talk to you all day, Chase Cantrell. We really love when you come on. Listen, if you have topics that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. All right, it's time for shout-outs. Let's start with you, Donna. Do you have any shout-outs?
Oh, my goodness. I have so many shout-outs.
Shout them out.
I want to shout out the ECN staff for putting on an outstanding East Side extravaganza. This was a really hard year. And we had staff changes. We have people on disability. But I especially want to shout out Keisha Jackson, Natalia McIntyre, Jamila Willis, and Daniel Cuffey, who really, worked as a team to pull it together. There were so many things that we had to do at the last minute. And, I never want to be in charge of parties. I was like, never again. And there were still some things that we didn't get quite right as much as I wanted to, but I don't think anybody noticed it. And it was a great affair. And also, we struggled a little bit with our contractors because they also had some turnover. But 98 Forward supported us. So I want to, just thank the people who helped us have a great time, and also Orlando Bailey, our host with the most. You did such a great job, as you always do, and you were so sharp. My goodness, that jacket. It was great.
Chase, do you have any shout-out?
I want to shout out Sabrina Nelson. So, beloved artist in the city of Detroit. She has an exhibit called
Bob, when she was on the show, we know all about it. Our listeners know.
Prophet James Paul. Well, the reason I want to shout her out, though, she had a panel discussion at the Right.
With Lauren, right?
With Lauren Hood, our beloved Lauren Hood. And it was one of those things that reminds me of, it was actually 4 Black women from Detroit. So the curators are Black women from Detroit. You had Sabrina and you had Lauren. And the conversation was just such a reminder of the power of Black women in our community, the power of art, and just, what Detroiters produce. So just shout out to Sabrina. It was just a beautiful moment.
I would like to shout out Johnny and Alexa Turnage, who invited me to moderate Black Tech Saturdays last Saturday, and to tee up a major announcement that the Gilbert Family Foundation is investing over $1.2 million into awesome. Black Tech Saturdays. And I got the privilege to tee that announcement up in front of a capacity crowd at New Lab on Saturday. What an operation they have. It was my first time being there. I've not been before. It is really something to behold. If you've not experienced it, I'm encouraging you to experience it in 2025, because we had the last one of 2024 last Saturday. But shout out to them and that investment. Darnell Adams, of course, was there. He's a board member of ECN and a friend of ours.
BCV alum.
And also a BCV alum, an ECN alum, right? Mm-hmm. Got to start here, along with so many other folks. Was there just beaming with joy and pride, being able to assist in the announcement of that major investment. So it was really fun to see. I got to see some of everybody. Everybody is there.
I always see it. It always looks great. I'm going to have the energy one Saturday. I want to say something real quickly. I know we're almost done. But that's another example of transformational power.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. It's not waiting for somebody to do something. It is, you stepped down, lost money, risked your whole livelihood. You're a U of M trained attorney, and you were working for, one of those white shoe law firms. Is that what they call it? One of the expensive...
Dykema?
Am Law 200.
Law 200 law firms. And you had a vision to change Detroit real estate and to create more equity and power. Johnny and Lexa had this vision, we're going to get more Black people in tech. Now, you read all of these articles about how the digital divide, and it seems almost permanent. You look at, Google not hiring Black folks and Amazon not hiring Black folks, and they're like, look, we'll start our own businesses. We're going to get you more knowledge. And some of the people will start their own businesses, and some people will be better equipped to work. But it's people who see those possibilities, and that is Detroit.
Yeah.
We are home of so much great
We don't wait on
creative
anybody.
capacity. And
There's
love
no
us
competition,
for it.
baby. None.
I love us. I love that about us.
Yeah.
We travel and we go to other places and we're like, no, this is nice, but it's not Detroit.
Man, when you hit 94 from DTW after you've been away, ain't nothing like that
That's
feeling.
right.
It's like, man, I'm home. I'm
So
in
I
the
just
D,
want
baby.
to honor you as being so Detroit, Chase.
Yeah, Chase.
and the other thing is people in my generation really understanding. Sometimes we act like younger people don't have what we had, and they're not as powerful, or they're not as motivated as we are. You move differently, and we don't need the 1960s to repeat itself. But I love the way you move, and I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
One last quick shout out for me. I would like to shout out Claire Nelson with the Urban Consulate. The Urban Consulate is back. Y'all been asking. We are back, and we're here to stay. But more importantly, I want to shout out our guest who blessed us on Wednesday night in Detroit at the Garden Theater, Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson and Adria Marie Brown.
It was so beautiful.
A literal dream space was created with those two on stage. And I just let it unfold. I had to just let it happen. And it was Chase, man.
It was wonderful to watch.
Yeah,
it was.
yeah. The two of them have been fans of each other for a long time. I mean, it's absolutely two luminaries.
The one thing I'll note about that, and I know we're at time, but one thing that was said is that there's a real difference. So this is about climate, right? There's a real difference between what will happen if one candidate wins versus another candidate.
Yeah.
And just the future of our Earth.
Yeah, it's consequential for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so that's going to do it for us. Thank y'all so much for listening, and until next time, love on somebody and allow yourself to be loved on. We'll see you.